I remember the exact night when I was 20 years old and I was suffering with social anxiety, and I had my first ever job interview the next morning. And I literally spent the evening before crying until I had a headache. Like, I don't think there was any more water left in my body. And I literally felt sick to my stomach with anxiety. I had this constant fear that people were going to laugh at me all the time, and I always felt so anxious to speak to anybody. I had also been living in a psychiatric hospital for 4 years, and so I hadn't even been discharged for long at this point, and so my social skills were so bad. But I also knew that if I didn't go to that job interview, I am most likely going to spend the rest of my life controlled by my fear, and I'm going to live a very lonely and miserable life. And so despite all the fear and the pain that I felt, I went to the job interview, and it was hard, but I had finally started taking responsibility for doing the hard work that I kept on avoiding. I also remember the exact day when I was 22 years old and I was heavily addicted to my phone with a screen time of 9 hours per day. And I made the decision that I was going to permanently delete all of my social media accounts, and I was going to work on building up better habits into my life. And honestly, I remember the next month being quite painful. I was literally having withdrawal symptoms and I felt so agitated. I constantly felt sad and lonely, and I had this fear of missing out on what my friends were doing. I also had no hobbies at this time because I had been such a phone addict for so long that I really didn't know what to do with myself. Like, I had no idea how to spend my time. I didn't even know what I enjoyed doing. I literally had to relearn how to spend my time properly and how to build up real hobbies into my life. But despite all of the agitation and loneliness and boredom and fear that came up, I knew that this discomfort was necessary to face, because the alternative would have been much worse, to continue to just waste my life away on my phone. And so I had finally started to take responsibility for doing the hard work that I kept on avoiding. I also remember the exact night when I was 24 years old and I was so unhappy with my job and living situation. And in bed I was reflecting that night and thinking about my life and thinking about what do I really want. And I made the decision that I was going to quit my job, I was going to sell everything, and I was going to leave the country. And I had no idea how I was going to make this happen because I had no money at the time. I was working a 9 to 5 job in the city and I was living in a council flat. And my mind was also filled with so much fear. The thought of leaving my secure job or leaving my country filled me with so much anxiety. I was thinking, what if it goes wrong? What if I leave my job and I can't find another one? What about if I run out of money? Will I end up on the streets? What happens if I leave my country and as a single woman traveling something happens to me? What if I get into danger? All of this anxiety and fear was in the back of my mind. What if this happens? What if that happens? And I had to really ask myself, Heather, are you willing to let your life be controlled by your fear? Controlled by these what ifs in your mind that might never come true? Do you really want to continue to stay in this situation that you are unhappy in? And obviously I didn't want that, and so this fear and anxiety was necessary to face, because the alternative would have been much worse, to continue to live a life that I am unhappy in. And so 8 months later I had managed to figure it out and get some money. The universe answered my prayers. I quit my job, sold everything and left, despite facing all of this anxiety, and I had finally started to take responsibility for doing the hard work that I kept on avoiding. I remember all of the key moments in my life when I decided to face my pain and take action to change my situation instead of keeping on running away from it. And so why am I sharing these stories with you? I'm sharing this with you because the truth is, until you are ready to face discomfort, you will continue to avoid making a change in your life and avoid taking responsibility. I think a lot of us are just waiting around to feel better about our situation. We are waiting for this burst of motivation or a feeling of being ready, whether that's to finally tackle our diet or our financial situation, or work on our phone addiction, or to overcome our social anxiety, or to stop drinking alcohol, or to leave that toxic relationship, whatever problem it is that you are suffering with. But the truth is, what if that feeling of being ready never comes? What if that motivation never comes? Are you willing to spend the rest of your life like this? Like, seriously, do you want to spend the rest of your life living how you currently are? Because if you continue to not do anything about your situation, that is the path you are currently heading down. And truthfully, how long have you been already waiting for? How long have you been wanting to change this thing about yourself, and you keep saying you're going to tackle it, but you haven't done it yet. You keep telling yourself tomorrow, next week, next month, but that day has still not come. And it's because you're waiting for something to happen. But nothing is going to happen until you make it happen. And the harsh truth is that you're never going to feel like making a change, because the work that you need to do to change your situation is painful and uncomfortable. And so that's why we keep on avoiding it. We avoid doing the work necessary to change our situation, because then it means that we don't have to feel those uncomfortable emotions that are going to arise. But the answer to making a change isn't to just wait around and hope that something changes. The answer to making a change is that you need to be brave enough and have the courage to step into that discomfort. Because that discomfort isn't going away. That fear isn't going away. It's going to be there tomorrow, next week, next month, until you decide to overcome it. And the only way to overcome it is that you need to be brave enough to feel it and to face it. And what that looks like is that when you have social anxiety and you're terrified of being seen, you have to be brave enough to speak up and be around people even when you're shaking and you feel so scared. Or when your health is declining and your energy feels so low, you have to get up anyway and choose to go out for that walk and make those hard food choices even when you don't feel like it. Or when you're in a relationship that you're so unhappy with, you have to have the courage to have that difficult conversation. Or maybe even end the relationship and leave even though you're so scared to be alone. We really only have two choices in life. We can either keep running away from our pain and keep prolonging it, or we can choose to face it head on. And both options are still going to mean that you face pain, by the way, because there's no escaping pain. But running away from our pain just feels better to us in the short term. However, in the long term, we turn this pain into suffering because it doesn't go away. We just keep on avoiding the problem. We numb it with food, TV, social media, sex, drugs, alcohol. We keep on suppressing it and turning it into suffering. And the longer we wait, the worse it gets and the more miserable that we continue to be. Whereas if we choose to face our pain head on, although it's not nice, and although it's uncomfortable, it is also temporary. We might feel lonely, we might feel anxious, we might feel fear, we might feel sadness, but then that emotion eventually passes. And when you keep on showing up and you keep on being brave, over time it becomes easier and easier. When I got home that evening from my first ever job interview when I was suffering with social anxiety, I was honestly exhausted, like I had been anxious all day. I was so tired. But when I got through the door, I also felt so happy because I was proud of myself that despite all of the fear and anxiety and all of the crying the night before, I had still been brave and I showed up anyway. And as time went on, I kept putting myself in those uncomfortable situations where every time I would feel sick with anxiety, I would not want to go. And honestly, there were so many times when I would stutter, when I would embarrass myself, when I would be quiet or awkward. But each time, each day, as I kept facing the pain and facing my fear, I got 1% better. And as the weeks and the months and the years went by, my fear decreased and my confidence grew. And now I don't have social anxiety anymore because I chose to face that pain. I also used to be someone who was a total people pleaser. I used to say yes to everything that I didn't want to do. I avoided having uncomfortable conversations because I didn't want to upset anybody else. But eventually I realized how much I was suffering because of my inability to stand up for myself. And I realized it was my responsibility to change this. And so I had to start learning how to push myself to have those uncomfortable conversations and face those difficult feelings. And that would literally look like in a conversation saying something like, "Hey, I actually don't like it when you say that, as it makes me feel this way, so can you please not say that again?" And it was so uncomfortable to have to do that. Like, I felt sick and anxious every time, and my voice would quiver, or maybe I'd stutter, or it didn't come across very well. But then I just kept on doing it again and again, facing the pain again and again. I started saying no to things that I didn't want to do. When people would say things that I didn't like, I would speak up for myself. And it was painful every time. It was never easy. It was never fun. But the alternative would have been much worse, to continue to be put down by people, to continue to disrespect myself by not voicing how I feel, to continue to be unhappy in my friendships or relationships. And every time I faced that pain, the difficult emotion would always pass. And as time went on, and I kept on showing up, kept facing that pain, it became easier and easier. And now years later, I feel content and I feel good about myself because I've learned how to protect myself and also how to express myself authentically. I'm not suppressing my voice anymore because I chose the pain of having difficult conversations and facing those uncomfortable feelings. The thing is, I know that if you were given the choice right now, you probably wouldn't want to be this way, right? Whatever change it is in your life that you know needs to happen, you don't want to be like this. You don't want to keep struggling like this anymore, and you want the problem to go away, but maybe you're not sure what to do about it. Except that's a lie, isn't it? The truth is, deep inside, you do know what you need to do about it, but you don't want to do it. You know that you need to have that difficult conversation that you keep on avoiding, or you know that you need to get up and get out and go for a walk, or you know that you need to quit your job or leave your partner or stand up for yourself when your boss talks to you in a certain way, but you just don't want to do it. Why? Because it is uncomfortable. But what we fail to recognize is that when we just keep on avoiding our pain, we just create more suffering for ourselves in the long term. We keep on avoiding doing the work that is going to change our situation, and so then we just stay the same, waiting for something to happen, waiting for some magic wand to come out of the sky and save us. But it's never coming. For many years, I avoided my pain. I made excuses for why I couldn't change my situation. Oh, but I have social anxiety. Look at my diagnosis that my doctor gave me. Oh, but this happened to me in my life, so I can't do anything about it. Oh, but I have no money, so how am I going to leave the country? Oh, but this, oh, but that, this long, long list. But the truth is that I was just scared. I was scared to do the hard work and take responsibility for my situation. I was scared that when I deleted all of my social media, I would lose all of my friends. I was scared to be alone. I was scared that people were going to laugh at me if I went up to talk to them. I was scared that if I had a difficult conversation with my friend, that they were going to react badly. I was scared to leave my job in case something bad happened. I was scared to face those difficult emotions, and so I continued avoiding doing the hard work, and my life continued to stay the same, and I continued to suffer because of my own choices. And it wasn't until I hit those moments of breaking points that I realized that I have to be brave. And I have to step into that pain and discomfort because these problems aren't going away. And the alternative is going to be so much worse. To continue to live a life controlled by my social anxiety, controlled by my fear, to continue to live a life addicted to my phone, that's going to be so much worse than just facing the pain head on. And so the intention behind this video and why I'm sharing all of this today is to just get you reflecting on what path are you currently choosing for yourself. Are you avoiding doing the hard work? Are you choosing to avoid facing pain now and trading it for long-term suffering? And if so, can you be brave enough to step into that pain, to feel those difficult emotions that will eventually pass and face your pain instead of running away from it? To face the fear, the boredom, the loneliness, because deep down you know that what's on the other side of that discomfort is going to be so worth it if you just keep on pushing through. I can promise you, on the other side of your pain is where your true freedom lies. I hope this video left you with something to think about. All the best to you. Thanks for watching.